Our main panel session for the day discusses the topic Youth Skills, Employability and Entrepreneurship. 2 days ago, a friend of mine was telling me about the biggest challenge, or what she considers one of the biggest challenges right now, which is employability. The challenge is not that there are not so many jobs, but we don't have so many people who can fit the roles. Let's hear what experts have to say. Leading the conversation is the program manager at Leap Africa, Mr. Olusegun Alimi. I invite him now to lead this session. Have a great time.
Hello everyone, good afternoon and welcome again to the second day of Leap Africa Social Innovators Program and Award. We are very, very excited to have you here. It's been an amazing day yesterday and today is even going to be a better day. You're welcome to this panel session and we're going to be talking about youth skills, employability and entrepreneurship. What a topic to be talking about, and very relevant, very timely, and the need to solve it is also very urgent. On behalf of Leap Africa, our amazing partners, I welcome everybody to this panel discussion, and we're very excited to have you. Please, as you come into the session, just begin to chat. Tell us where your child is, where you're tuning in from, your name, it's also a way to network, just get acquainted with people who are also in the chat room. I'll just set the context of how this session would go. I would be setting the context, then I'll introduce our amazing panelists. I would mention their names and they'll tell us who they are, what they do. Then we'll dive deep into this very, very, very important conversation. You might think youth skills, employability, entrepreneurship. What is this about? We keep talking about it every day. The employment rates are going up, the employment rates are going up around the continent. What can we do for our young people? And when you think about it, Africa has the youngest and fastest growing population in the world, with over 65 people under the age of 35 and 50% under the age of 19. This is something for us to think about. And according to the IMF, in 2035, Africa will have the highest number of people going into the workforce. What are we going to do? How do we absorb this number of people? How do we create these jobs for people of the future? Africa's youth population, we call it youth capital. It can be a blessing or a curse. But guess what? That's up to you and I, because it's dependent on what we do. If we enable and harness this youth capital, we will reap the demographic dividend and we will be able to have the Africa of our dreams. But if not, this would relate and bring about socio-economic challenges in the country. At Leap Africa, we believe in the agency of young people. And what we do over the last 18 years, we've been on a mission to raise leaders that will transform Africa. That is what we've been doing. And we always find these conversations very, very important. We believe in ecosystem building and see this as an opportunity to bring the youth capital issue top of mind, because the youth are capital. The youth are the people who will change our continent. So it's very important for us to have this conversation all the time. For this session, it's a very heavy topic. And in the interest of time, so we might not be taking questions, but it's important to note, you can drop your questions in the comment section. So for specific panelists or just general questions, I'll be sure to get it over to them. So without further ado, I'm just going to mention the name of each of my amazing panelists, and then you can see that I'm a very brave man. I have 4 very powerful, intelligent, amazing, and experienced women in my midst, and they'll be introducing themselves very shortly. So in no particular order, Chidinma.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chidinma Lawanson, and I'm the country head for Nigeria for Mastercard Foundation. So glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Chidinma. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Segun, and thank you, Leap Africa, for inviting me for this. My name is Tolu Agunbiade, and I'm the Regional Director for ALX for Anglophone West Africa.
Awesome. Okay, let's meet you, Sharmi.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Segun. My name is Sharmi Surianarain. I'm the Chief Impact Officer for Harambe Youth Employment Accelerator. Super excited to be along with these fabulous fellow panelists on this discussion.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, Shay, can you unmute yourself so we can meet you?
Thank you, Segun. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oluwaseyi Ladejobi. I oversee the Employability Program at the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, popularly known as LSETF. Thank you, Miguel.
Awesome.
I'm so happy to be on the session.
Great. Fantastic. So we've met our panelists. I think it's time to dive in. And I'll start. So, according to Paul Roman, he said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And we do know that 2020 has been a very eventful year for all of us. And the pandemic itself has already added to the growing unemployment rate we face as a continent. So I would start with you, Shay. With the unemployment crisis on the continent, kindly share at a high level how your organization is working to tackle this important and urgent challenge.
Okay, thank you very much, Segun, for that question. Interesting, when you say the change of and the essence of why LSETF was set up in the first place. LSETF is an agency of the government. It was 2016 to promote entrepreneurship by providing access to affordable finances for the micro, small, LSETF is an agency of enterprises and also facilitates skills development interventions under the employability intervention and promote entrepreneurship, enterprises, and also support the tech ecosystem addressing this. So like I said, in promoting entrepreneurship, we have the loan program where we provide access to funding for micro, small, and medium enterprises in Lagos State. Beyond the funding that we provide, we also provide capacity building for the businesses. We also promote access to market intervention to help support the businesses. By doing this, we believe that they expand their businesses and they're able to employ and reduce unemployment in Lagos. The second is the employability intervention, which has to do with skills development training. So essentially, we equip youth with industry relevant training and facilitate job placement opportunities for the Lagos State residents. The last is supporting the technology ecosystem. Now, we believe that through our Lagos Innovate intervention, it's a platform that is designed to help funders and startup businesses in the ecosystem. We're able to support them with infrastructure, workspace vouchers, and also provide talent development interventions. All these interventions of LSETF is geared towards addressing the unemployment issues that we see in Lagos State, and that's the very essence that we were set up for. Now, to just give an impact of what we have been able to achieve since inception in 2016. Till date, we have supported 11,000 MSMEs in Lagos State. We have facilitated job placement for about 90,000 individuals in the state, both direct and indirect jobs. We have provided that. We have done additional trainings for over 5,000 young persons between the ages of 18 to 35, in some cases 45, again, depending on the trade skills that they apply for. Job placement is the end goal for the programs that we run. So job placement wise, we have facilitated over 50% job placement. And so those are some of the impacts that we've had in LSETF, and those are some of the lines with which our intervention will continue. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Shay. Thank you for that, telling us that's a very holistic approach. And we like to hear that. I will take it a bit further as we go into the conversation. Okay, so Sharmi, same question for you, please.
Sure, thank you. And such a huge fan of the Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. It's a great example of public-private partnerships, I think. So Harambe is based in South Africa and in Rwanda, although I'm physically based in Kenya. But we are a demand-led, technology-enabled, youth-centered, partnership-focused youth employment accelerator. What does all that jargon mean? We try and solve the challenge of unemployment by really approaching it at scale in partnership with the government, and we tried to focus on the demand side of the equation as well. So we found early on when we started, where we partnered with private sector employers, we partnered about 40 young people our first year of operation about 9 years ago. And now we've just crossed nearly 200,000 and created a network of nearly 800,000 young people in South Africa and in Rwanda. We found through our journey that it wasn't enough for us to just solve the demand-supply mismatch to say, you know, employers wanted X and young people had Y. So in the early years, it was good for us to calibrate and understand how to bring the two together. We found quite quickly on it was important to involve government, which is why I think, you know, the LSETF model is so impressive. But just understanding central role of government is important. So we said, how can we partner with the Gauteng provincial government, which is the biggest economic hub, for example, in South Africa? And then more recently, we started actually working to catalyze new job growth. So it's actually insufficient for us to partner with young people to pathway them directly to jobs. We actually have to bring new jobs into the country. So that's a little taste of what we do. I'm sure there's more questions and opportunities to share.
Of course. Thank you. Awesome. Chidinma, let's hear from you, please.
Thank you so much for having me, for inviting me here. So Mastercard Foundation was set up out of the generosity of Mastercard in 2006, where we have different governing bodies and different boards. So for the Mastercard Foundation, we seek a world where everyone has the opportunity to learn and prosper. And we also want to ensure that, especially the underserved, they have affordable and available financial services. So financial inclusion is very key for us, and we look at education as an enabler to achieve those objectives. So we work in Canada amongst the communities in Canada, and then in 7 countries in Africa to ensure that we're implementing our Young Africa Work Strategy. So we're in Kenya, in Rwanda, in Uganda, in Ghana, Senegal, Ethiopia, and now in Nigeria. So this Young Africa Work Strategy is really to ensure that come 2030, there will be 30 million African youth between the ages of 15 and 35 that have access to what we call dignifying and fulfilling work. We just don't call it jobs because that connotes a 9-to-5, career. But there is this strong gig economy because we believe that Africa has that potential to reduce its high unemployment rates. And if we pull in the youth, they would be very, very instrumental in reducing unemployment indices and other things, negative things that come with it. So for the Young Africa Works strategy, each country in Africa that we're presenting at thematic areas. So we work with implementing partners to pull in jobs for the youth. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Chidinma. Thank you. All right, Tolu, over to you. What are you doing to tackle the unemployment challenge?
Everything, but seriously. I work at ALX, and we're part of a larger group, the African Leadership Group, that a couple of people on this panel are familiar with. We have partnerships with them. Sharmi used to be with us at ALA. We miss you so much. And for us, our mission is to transform Africa by developing 3 million entrepreneurial and ethical leaders who go on to, like I mentioned, transform Africa through jobs that they create, through businesses that they start, through opportunities that they create. And we want to do all this by 2035, thanks to the thing that you mentioned, Shegun, about how by 2035, Africa will have the biggest workforce. And speaking specifically to dignified jobs, so just like unemployment in general, what we're doing is by 2030, we want to have placed 2 million people, 2 million young Africans in dignified employment. And right now, our working hypothesis, don't tell my boss I said this, is $400 that people are earning every month. That's the idea of what at bare minimum dignified employment means. And we have partnerships with people like Mastercard who are funding this mission that we have. And right now what we do is our process is to identify leaders within anywhere in Africa, really. Identify them, develop them using our high quality programs, and then connecting them to opportunities which vary. Opportunities can be the gig economy, it can be direct placements into jobs, it can be entrepreneurship. And that's why I said we do everything. So we cover not just the placements, but we also foster and facilitate entrepreneurship with young people on the continent. So summary, that's what we do, because I know you asked me.
Awesome.
I won't give it all away.
No, not at once. Okay, thank you very much. And a couple of things that came out, we're talking about numbers, we're talking of employment, we're talking of placements, we're talking of the place of education. And at Leap Africa, we believe education should translate to employment, to give people freedom, to live prosperous lives. And as we go further, we'll begin to just identify how does this actually work? What is important? But something that's coming out also is some cross-cutting collaborations between organizations here. And I think collaborations for scale is something that's very important, but I'll hold that thought as we discuss further. So next, we'll just go into, so I read something so the target 4 of the SDG 4 is very interesting, and it's on quality education, of course. And it aims to sustainably increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. This brings me to my next question, and that's something that Sharmi was speaking about. So for me, is how can we bridge the skills acquired and skills required gap that affects the demand and supply of qualified workforce? So Sharmi, I just want you to briefly speak about the Harambe demand-driven model and how effective it has been. You said some of those numbers, but how effective has it been in creating jobs for young people?
It's a great question, and I think each panelist probably has great comments. We at Harambe start with demand first. So it's insufficient for us to just train young people for work that we don't know exists, right? So I think it's what is the job and work backwards from there. So whether it's working at a call center or working at a shop floor, etc., or in a mine, and you need to understand what the job is, break down the components of a job. And what we do at Harambe is we actually undertake what we call a job diagnostics. So what is the actual job, especially at an entry level? We break it down into 6 factors, which are not just the technical aspects of the jobs, because the technical aspects are great, but there's a whole host of other things like soft skills, workplace readiness. Are you ready to work in a place that's just routine work all the time, answering calls, the same kind of calls, scripted? And then we then match that and conduct sort of profile assessments of the young people to say, what skills and competencies do you need for that job and what's a match first? And you'll be surprised to say, speaking to your goal of the SDG, most education institutions do not sufficiently test for the kind of competencies that are required for the job. They'll give you grades. They'll give you, you can write an essay in English and get, good or bad grades in math. But you don't really know if you can actually work in a customer-oriented environment. So that sort of unfortunate discrepancy makes this really difficult at scale. So you need to understand what are young people, and young people are so capable. I think you mentioned all the stats and you talked about the burden of the curse, right? Or the potential. Young people are the solution to the problem. They're not the problem. So it's up to us in all of these spaces to design instruments that can actually tease out the competencies and then match those to the jobs in question. And because we start with the job first, I think our matching efficiency is really high. And I do think that, more education institutions need to start with the job first and actually think of demand relevant training from that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharmi. That's very, very, very insightful. And because really the work we do, so a couple of things you mentioned, life skills. At Leap Africa, at the core, we believe in leadership and life skills. Because first of all, you need to know how to behave when you get to this job. You need to have certain aspirations, And the second thing you mentioned is when we're talking about different types of jobs, you say you can be an attendant, you talked about a variety of jobs. And I like that. And it's just taking me to the next line of conversation, because in Africa, over 85% of employment is in the informal sector of the economy. So I just want to, so Shay, this question is for you. You spoke about your employability support project. So I want to just know, LSETF is doing some work with vocational skills. How is it going, and how can we make vocational skills acquisition more attractive for young people, where they see it as a dignified form of job? I mean, we need carpenters every day, electricians every day, plumbers every day. So Shay, speak to us, please.
Thank you, Segun, for that. And it's very critical what you have said, right, in terms of the informal sector contributing to the economy. Now, what we've done in LSETF with the Employability Support Project is demand-led, like Sharmi also mentioned. And so what we try to do is we start off with the industry engagement, where we want to identify what skill gap exists. Because, so again, you want to make sure that the beneficiaries are comfortable. They don't just see that they are applying for a carpentry job or they're applying for a plumbing training. They want to see that it's demand-driven, it's demand-led. There's that job for them once they're done with training. So we usually start off the process with the industry engagement. And the beauty about the industry engagement is you address the skill needs and the skill shortage that exists within the labor market. Now, how do we make it attractive for the young people? There are three key elements. The project has a mentorship side of it. Now, with mentorship, what you have to do is you have industry experts on board the program. And so what they do is they handhold these beneficiaries. In addition, they provide the vocational guidance to help with their aspiration. And then these youths can identify with their success story. Another key element is access to job placement. Now, as Chidinma also mentioned with Tolu, dignified job placement. Now, what we do is we map them to employers. Of course, from the industry engagement, you've identified employers where they can work to further practicalize what they have learned, applying what they have learned to the job, which helps with the competencies that they've acquired. And the last is access to market platforms and partnerships. Now, with access to market platform, what we do is we onboard and list the skill set of beneficiaries. You showcase what they have learned, you showcase their services, and you have people request for them. Again, platforms like I Create Africa, if you remember, or if you know what they do, they have changed the narrative of how people perceive vocational skills. You know, you get to see them as professionals now, and you get to identify. When it comes to mentorship, access to market and access to job placement. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I like that holistic approach and the life cycle approach, end to end. And, you know, this is definitely an idea and a solution we should scale. As I progress to the next line of question, Aspiration 6 of the African Union 2063 Agenda seeks to realize an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of the African people, especially its women and youth. So Chidinma, this is for you. Can you speak briefly about the Mastercard Foundation's Young Africa Work Strategy, highlighting the emerging sectors that would create the jobs of the future on the continent?
Thank you very much, Shay. As I said initially, we have a global Young Africa Work Strategy for the entire Africa, 30 million youth, with a focus of 70% of that 30 million youth as women, having dignifying work by 2030. But pulling it down to Nigeria, out of that 30 million, we in Nigeria, we have 10 million to ensure that 10 million youth between the ages of 15 and 35 get that dignifying work. So to arrive at the sectors that we would look at, there was a lot of strategizing, talking with industry stakeholders, the private and public sector, and looking at where the opportunities are for young men and women, especially for pulling in women who are underserved. And we came about agriculture. So 70% of our focus is on agriculture, 20% in the creative industries, and 10% in digital economy. Because of the contribution of employment indices from agriculture. And it's not just looking at it from a drudgery perspective. So Mastercard Foundation, we fund those implementing partners who can aggregate smallholder farmers wherever they are, train them. So capacity building is very significant for us. Use extension service providers to train them, provide them with input, because on the same hectare of land, you can get so much increased yield if you're practically trained, you have the best agricultural practices, you have the input quality seeds and linkages to market, because there we are on the one side, the farmers are producing, they're losing their products because of lack of access to markets. So aggregators such as Babangona, Cellulant, Agrolog, Alluvial, these are some of the names that we have. WOFAN, who deals with Women Farmers Advancement Network. We work with them. Then in the creative industry, film, music, the GDP of Nigeria was rebased because of the contribution of the creative industry. There's the arts, there's the hospitality sector that pulls in the youth fully into that. So there are companies that they train the youth. If you train entrepreneurial youth to learn how to use the cameras, they can go into film production, they can go into TV stations and work in radio and other related creative sectors. So we work with implementing partners who will pull in this youth automatically. And I mean, digital, we're almost like the Silicon Valley of Africa. There are youth that they'll be incubated and trained, whether they're in the TVET space post-secondary or they finish with tertiary institutions, they will be trained and linked with access to jobs. So like Jobberman is a platform that builds in the demand and the supply side. And like I mentioned also, in the agri side, we have those who put digital in space, like Sahel Consulting. And we're so proud of the work you're doing on your nourishing.com, Africa.com platform, linking those in the agri sector, more than 1 million of them on your platform. So with that, we ensure that like EDC, Enterprise Development Center, they train MSMEs and ensure they link them to. So we're ensuring that these are dignifying work that will be created for the youth. So this strategy builds in these thematic areas and working with the banks, because access to finance is very great, like Sterling Bank. We've funded them to ensure that they provide low interest rates at 9% fully for the agri sector. So with that, we're expanding the capacity of the MSMEs to expand their work. And as they expand their work, they pull in more people to work with them, ensuring that employment indices for the youth are very great. And in each partnership, we ensure that young women, up to 70%, are pulled into those platforms. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much. A couple of things you said. So first of all, the age range 15 to 35, phenomenal, because what we've learned, from our work, just using Nigeria as a case study, is 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people are the only number of people that are able to get into university. So helping them get jobs at that level would help them in terms of dignified job, help them take care of themselves, help them take care of their families. So that's something that's very important. And digital, I believe, is something that can scale, agri and all. Applying technology, they can have remote work, a lot of things can be done. So thank you, Chidinma. And those numbers are good. So I'll just move on. You spoke also about MSMEs. And my next question will be for Tolu, because MSMEs make up over 90% of organizations in Africa. So Tolu, kindly share actionable strategies for developing entrepreneurial leaders who would grow and scale their enterprises and create employment in Africa.
Thanks for that. And I love that you're asking me the entrepreneurship question, because I mentioned earlier, it's near and dear to my heart. One of the things that I do within ALX is to develop an entrepreneurship program within the organization. And how we do that, so we've set this target of having 200,000 entrepreneurs who are creating 1 million jobs in the next 10 years. And one way we're thinking of that is actually leveraging the work we've done with Anzisha, which was at ALA, part of the ALA program. In Anzisha, actually, the numbers are 1 to 18. So one entrepreneur on average creates 18 jobs. And we're like, wow, let's just start small and then see if we can stand on the shoulders of giants and do even more. And how we do that more practically is we are at core risking entrepreneurship. So we want to come to a place where anybody thinks of entrepreneurship not as your side hustle or as that thing where you have to be a unicorn, so you're earning $1 billion valuation. There's such a spectrum for entrepreneurship, and there's a place that multiple people can fit in. You heard Chidinma talking about agriculture, or Sharmi talking about vocational trade, and similarly Shay talking about the same thing, right? We're saying, how can we, and a way we define entrepreneurial leaders is, can you identify what you think is a problem, come up with a solution using limited resources, and then creating that solution for other people to benefit from it, that creates value for them and for yourself as well. And if you have that mindset, what we do is then we identify people with that latent potential. We give them the learning that they need. We give them the experience, because you don't just talk about being an entrepreneur, you have to do entrepreneurship. So we give them avenues to practice that de-risks the whole idea of I failed or my parents will chase me out. We want you to have that space where you can practice this and get solid value from what you're doing, and then create jobs for other people. And a term that we've coined right now that we're looking at is, how can we promote more camel entrepreneurship? And I'll explain to you where that comes from. So the whole idea of being a camel entrepreneur is, if you check how camels are, they can go in deserts for long distance with little water. So they create a lot of value for whoever is riding them or whoever they're pulling along with very little input. And it's not that we want to break your back, it's that we're saying that you actually have more strength than you think. And how can we pull that strength out of you such that when we now help you finish the development, then you can say, yes, I'm doing well. And when they're just speaking specifically to the main component of our entrepreneurship program, it starts with identifying, because we think it's really, really important to identify the right people. We don't think that you can teach people some things like resilience or grit. Maybe I won't say you can't teach it, I can just say it's harder, especially in an entrepreneur. And if you've ever worked with entrepreneurs, you know that it's almost a thankless job sometimes. So we want people who have that fortitude, who have that grit, who have that resilience coming in. And then we layer that foundation of grit and resilience with resources and opportunity. And we give you the learning, the resources. We partner with organizations. Shay, we still need to do this, our partnership. This is the second time. We must do it by force. We partner with organizations who can then amplify their reach as well. We connect them to an ecosystem of both our partners. With technology, we leverage that with the skills and the learning that we give them as well. And then we help them access customer bases so that they can then reach a wider audience and generate revenue and value from that. So, nutshell, how we scale entrepreneurship: identify the right people, develop them, connect them to opportunities. The end.
Awesome. I love that. No, but I love that. I mean, I like how you wrapped it up. And for me, something that's very interesting, you didn't talk about access to finance. I mean, that's very critical. But there are some other forms of capital that entrepreneurs need: knowledge capital, access to resources, access to market, access to those networks. And I think that's something phenomenal that we should take away from this. I think what you also said.
Just really quickly, I just want to say, like, when you think about why people need finance, it's not just money for the sake of money, it's money to do something. So we speak to the things that they need money to do. Doesn't mean money won't be there, but it's like you need to realize money is a means to something more that you want. So let's not focus on money, focus on what it needs to do.
Definitely. And the key word that came out from there is value. So create value that can be scaled. You know, something for me that's very critical here is just partnership, that word partnership. So at Leadback, I believe strongly in collaboration, in partnerships to scale. So I just want to encourage all of us on this panel, everybody listening, because the theme still remains mobilizing collective action for systemic change. These are deep-rooted issues, and we all need to come together to ensure that we can bring positive and lasting solutions to these problems. My panelists, you've been awesome and amazing. Please thank my panelists in the comment section. And as I just wrap up, I would close with an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. So let us all get to work and make Africa the place we all truly will be proud to call home. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening.